Part 43. Martial Arts, Become Invincible starting from the full level magic system. Author, Drunk in March at Westlake. Chapter 421. Now that you're here, come in. You are also a heavenly being, so you don't have to hide your head or tail. Xiao Wuji transmitted the sound into the secret and reached Shangguan Wudeo's ears. Only Shangguan Wudeo could hear this sound, and no one in the entire Supreme Alliance could hear it. Sure enough, it was discovered. Shangguan Wudeo's expression did not change, he had expected this. His incarnation has just stepped into the threshold of heaven and human beings, and it is impossible to hide from Wu Wudi's soul perception. Whoosh! Shangguan Wudeo's shadow flashed, and he escaped into the Supreme Realm. The core hall of the Alliance, the Supreme Palace. The Supreme Palace is magnificent, with carved railings and jade inlays. It is extremely exquisite, comparable to the palace. And on a golden throne, sitting impressively is a burly man. He is leaning on the throne, he put his hand on his forehead, his eyes were deep, and his whole body exuded invisible aura and coercion. He was the leader of the Supreme Alliance, Bihai Madman Wu Wudi. Who? As soon as Shangguan Wudeo appeared, the blood-clothed guards standing guard in the Supreme Alliance spotted him and immediately stepped forward to surround him. The blood-clothed guards of the Supreme Alliance were many martial arts masters controlled by Wu Wudi using the soul-moving method. All of them are at the master level, and there are two great masters of the evil sect as leaders. With such power, under the unity of heaven and man, there are few masters that they can't deal with. The blood-clothed guards surrounded Shangguan Wudeo, and as long as Wu Wudi gave the order, he would step forward and kill him. Faced with being surrounded by many masters, Shangguan Wudeo's face did not change. There was no one else in his eyes, only Wu Wudi on the throne. As soon as Shangguan Wudeo entered the Supreme Hall, he faced Wu Wudi's eyes. A sword light flashed instantly. Shangguan Wudeo suddenly woke up, took 3 steps back, and was extremely frightened. This martial art is invincible and unparalleled. It includes swords, guns, swords, halberds, fists, palms, legs and fingers. It has 18 kinds of martial arts. It is omnipotent and masterful. I could already tell from the first battle that day that the pressure at this moment of confrontation was indeed much greater than last time. Shangguan Wudeo was secretly shocked. Both were in the second realm of heaven and humans. Shangguan Wudeo unconsciously compared himself with Wu Wudi and confirmed that there was no possibility of defeating Wu Wudi. Who is Shangguan Wudeo? He is a genius from the demon sect. Known as the #1 genius in 200 years. Ever since he was young, Wu Wudi has always fought across levels and was invincible at the same level. But after just one look at Wu Wudi, Shangguan Wudeo was sure that Wu Wudi was the same monster as him. Monsters are also invincible beings in the same realm. And Wu Wudi's background is obviously deeper than him, and he is only half a step away from the third realm of heaven and man. If he faced Wu Wudi now, he would lose more than he would win. The contemporary lord of the Shangguan clan, Shangguan Wudeo, has met the leader of the Wu Alliance. Shangguan Wudeo cupped his fists and said to Wu Wudi. Compared with the identity of the leader of the demon cult, what makes Shangguan Wudeo more glorious is undoubtedly his identity as the leader of the Shangguan clan. Although he does not have the name of emperor, he has the great righteousness of the emperor. Wu Wudi looked at Shangguan Wudeo and said expressionlessly, "It turns out that the leader of the demon cult is here, and you have come all the way, what do you mean?" Shangguan Wudeo said calmly, "I know that the leader of the Wu Alliance has extraordinary powers and established the Supreme Alliance to dominate the world, so I came here to congratulate the leader of the Wu Alliance. In addition, I have important matters to discuss with the leader of the Martial Alliance." As he said that, Shangguan Wudeo glanced at the blood-clothed guards around him, and the meaning was self-evident. The leader of the demon cult came in person and said that there was something important. It must be a real big thing. Such a big thing is not suitable for soldiers to hear. Wu Wudi waved his hands and said, "You guys, please step back." "Yes, as ordered." Many blood-clothed guards obeyed the order, saluted respectfully to Wu Wudi, and then turned into blood shadows and flew out of the palace. The door of the Supreme Palace was also closed. "Tell me, what's important?" Wu Wudi is still leaning on the golden throne, his expression unchanged, making it impossible for Shangguan Wuidao to see what Wu Wudi is thinking. In terms of qi nourishing skills and the ability to control expressions, Xiao Wuji is ranked second, and no one in the world dares to do so. First. Shangguan Wuidao looked at Wu Wudi, smiled and said, "The leader of the Wu Alliance has incredible magical powers. Although he founded the Supreme Alliance and exerts pressure on the world, don't you think the Supreme Alliance is a bit small?" As soon as the Supreme Alliance was established, it spread to the entire Zhou dynasty. Countless famous sects were enveloped by it, and countless masters of the world trembled and remained silent. Only Buddha, Taoism, swords, and demons could compare with it. But Shangguan has no way. You know, today's Supreme Alliance is not what Wu Wudi wants. In other words, today's Supreme Alliance is still too small after all and cannot satisfy Wu Wudi's huge ambition. Wu Wudi wants more. Wu Wudi's expression remains unchanged. He said calmly, "Master Shangguan has come all the way, isn't he here to talk nonsense with me?" Shangguan Wuidao smiled and said, "Don't be angry, leader of the Martial Arts Alliance. I am here this time to help the Martial Alliance leader." Wu Wudi said calmly, "Where do I need help from your demon sect?" The demon sect is like a lost dog, wanted throughout the great Zhou dynasty, so it can only hide in the dark corners of the sewers, doing things like rat stealing and flattery. What can today's demon sect do to help me? Being ridiculed by Wu Wudi, Shangguan Wuidao's anger rose in his heart, and a cold light flashed in his eyes, but he did not show it. His qi nourishing skills are also very good, but showing his emotions in front of outsiders will only look ridiculous. Shangguan Wuidao said calmly, "Our holy religion has been passed down for more than 100 years and has a profound foundation. The leader of the Martial Alliance still doesn't know the strength of my holy religion. When the foundation of our holy religion comes out one day, Leader Wu will believe what I said today." Wu Wudi said, "Okay, stop talking nonsense and tell me your purpose. My patience is almost exhausted." Shangguan Wuidao smiled and said, "Then I'll get straight to the point. I once heard that the Martial Alliance wanted to achieve national destiny on Friday. It just so happens that my Shangguan clan also wants to overthrow the great Zhou kingdom. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Why don't you and I cooperate? I believe that the Supreme Alliance and the Holy Cult join forces to defeat the great Zhou dynasty. After everything is done, how about you and I sharing the great Zhou dynasty together?" In the Supreme Hall, Shangguan Wuidao stood with his hands behind his back. He believed that Wu Wudi would not refuse this proposal. In his opinion, Wu Wudi was a very ambitious person and would never accept the opportunity to carve up the world of the great Zhou dynasty. "Missed it?" Wu Wudi looked at Shangguan Wuidao, with a sneer on his lips. Shangguan cult leader's abacus is really shrewd. Shangguan Wuidao's expression remained unchanged and he said, "What does this mean, Leader Wu, Wu?" Wudi said, "Master Shangguan knows clearly in his heart that if we don't share the world, it's a lie. Killing people with a borrowed knife will hurt both sides, and the fisherman will gain, right? Zero asking for flowers." Shangguan Wuidao smiled and said, "Master Wu is overly worried. I have never thought of it this way." Indeed, Shangguan Wuidao really planned to use the invincible force to weaken the Zhou court. As long as both the Supreme Alliance and the court were harmed, the demon sect could benefit and realize the century-old plan to restore the country. But Shangguan Wuidao could not follow it. From the beginning, he never thought that his thoughts could be hidden from Wu Wudi. A strong man who can cultivate to the realm of harmony between man and nature cannot be a reckless man with force but no brains. Since Wu Wudi was born, although he has done these are all actions of a reckless man, but Shangguan Wuidao knows that Wu Wudi is by no means a reckless man. When dealing with such people, some calculations cannot be hidden, and pretentiousness is nothing more than making people laugh. But even if Wu Wudi can guess what he is thinking, Shangguan Wuidao is also confident. Because he is right, the enemy of his enemy is his friend. Wu Wudi wants to achieve national destiny on Friday, and it is impossible to succeed only by relying on the Supreme Alliance. Although Xia Luxian is not Wu Wudi's opponent, Xia Aishi, but it is not something that Wu Wudi can deal with. As long as Xia Aishi does not die, Wu Wudi's ambition will not be realized. So Shangguan Wuidao came to help Wu Wudi. If the demon cult takes action and joins forces with the Supreme Alliance, the great Zhou dynasty can definitely be defeated. When the time comes, sharing the world will definitely be possible. However, after success, sharing the world will depend on each person's strength. The demon sect is the descendant of the previous dynasty, the Shangguan clan is the blood of the emperor, and the great Zhou dynasty is the descendant of the previous dynasty. The divine weapon of Shiji. As a descendant of the previous royal family, Shangguan Wuidao could never share the world with others, which Wu Wudi knew very well. Wu Wudi had huge ambitions. Although he said that he would only achieve national destiny on the Great Friday, he still achieved 5 achievements. Even if you want 10%, it is impossible to share the world with others. This is something Shangguan Wuidao knows very well. Therefore, it is possible to form an alliance, but after it is done, sharing the world will have to rely on their own methods. Both of them knowing the plan to deal with it. Shangguan Wuidao tried to make both the Supreme Alliance and the Great Zhou Court suffer losses. But Shangguan Wuidao also gave Wu Wudi a chance. If Wu Wudi planned well, he could also make both the demon sect and the court suffer losses, and he would benefit. Although it is a conspiracy, the people who are scheming are mutual. This is a conspiracy and there is no solution. Leader Wu, what do you think? Shangguan Wuidao looked at Wu Wudi and said calmly. Wu Wudi slowly closed his eyes, then opened them suddenly, looked at Shangguan Wuidao, and said, since the leader of Shangguan sincerely invites you, I naturally have no reason to refuse. Good. Leader Wu, just agree. Shangguan. Wuidao laughed loudly and said loudly, since Leader Wu has agreed to cooperate, then the matter of destroying the country and slaying the dragon will be put on the agenda. I believe that if you and I work together sincerely, we will definitely be able to kill this evil dragon of Great Zhou in one fell swoop. Shangguan Wuidao raised his hand and shook it, his eyes were filled with cold light, and the murderous intention around him surged. The restoration of the country is true, and the murderous intention against the Great Zhou dynasty is also true. The Shangguan family has been plotting for more than 100 years just to kill the rebels of the Great Zhou dynasty. Dragon, now the final step is finally about to begin. Martial arts, become invincible starting from the full-level magic system. Author, Drunk in March at Westlake. Chapter 422. Reaching an alliance agreement with Wu Wudi, Shangguan Wuidao's celestial clone returned to Suaniao Cave. The clone and the original body merged into one, and Shangguan Wuidao arrived outside a core hall in Dongtian. The main hall is majestic and strange, with a vast atmosphere, and there is no one around. The door of the palace was closed, but there was a sinister aura emanating from the palace, which made people shudder. The 2 bronze doors have not been opened for more than 50 years. Shangguan Wuidao looked at the entrance of the hall with calm eyes, clasped his hands into fists, and shouted respectfully, Shangguan Wuidao, my descendant, please see the ancestor. When the voice fell, there was a dead silence, and you could hear a needle drop. There was no response in the palace, as if there was no one alive. But Shangguan Wuidao didn't stop, but shouted again, the younger generation, Shangguan Wuidao, wants to see my ancestor. I hope I can see my ancestor when he comes out of seclusion. Boom. This time there was finally a response, and a loud noise was heard in the hall. The vast ancient bronze door slowly opened a gap, and a terrifying aura burst out, sweeping across the entire Blackbird Cave in an instant. All the demon sect members in Suanyao Cave were forced to kneel to the ground by this coercion. This momentum was as oppressive as a big mountain, making their bones ache 2, 3, 7, and their hearts were extremely frightened. As the palace door opened, Shangguan Wuidao could clearly see the situation inside the palace. The hall was filled with blood red, and all he could see was red mist. No, it should be said to be blood mist. The blood mist has become a reality and is everywhere, and the strong smell of blood is exuding, which is nauseating. Call. Suddenly, a powerful and terrifying suction force burst out from the gap in the palace door. The powerful suction pulls the air, forming a tornado vortex that is visible to the naked eye. This suction force can break stones and jade, and suck each demon sect member into the hall. Then, screams of extreme horror came from inside the palace. The suction force became stronger and stronger, and more demon cult believers were sucked into the hall. In the blink of an eye, 200 to 300 people had been sucked into the palace, including many master-level experts. Shangguan Wuidao remained motionless in the suction vortex. Although the suction force of the vortex was strong, it could not shake him at all. Shangguan Wuidao turned a blind eye to the situation and turned a deaf ear to the screams that echoed in his ears. He just watched the scene with an expressionless face, unfazed. Ah! As the last scream fell, the suction vortex finally stopped, and the aura and pressure slowly subsided. The bloody mist in the hall began to dissipate at a speed visible to the naked eye, and the two bronze doors finally opened. The bloody mist formed a huge blood cocoon, and eventually all the blood cocoons were absorbed, revealing a human figure sitting cross-legged. It was a man, very young, about 30 years old in appearance, tall, wearing a black robe with golden dragon and Kyanki patterns embroidered with gold thread. The man swallowed the last mouthful of bloody mist and finally opened his eyes. His eyes were full of vicissitudes, full of experiences left over by time, and also full of sinister aura. He is Shangguan Fixiao, the old demon lord of the demon sect, the master of Shangguan Ao, and the master of Shangguan Wuidao. Shangguan Fixiao looked around, felt his physical condition at the moment, and suddenly started to look up to the sky and laugh. Ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha. Shangguan Fixiao laughed wildly, and the laughter spread throughout the Suanyao cave. 56 years, 56 years. Ha 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 ha, Xiaoshi, you failed to kill me after all. Shangguan Fixiao's laughter was full of joy, excitement, hatred, and murderous intent. After laughing and venting his depression for decades, Shangguan Fixiao looked outside the hall and saw Shangguan Wuidao's figure. Impressed. Come in. Shangguan Fixiao said. Shangguan Wuidao stepped into the palace. In just one step, he crossed more than 10 feet, came to the center of the palace, and stood facing Shangguan Fixiao. The younger generation, Shangguan Wuidao, pays homage to the ancestor. Shangguan Wuidao cupped his fists and saluted. Although he was polite and respectful, he was not afraid or panicked. Although Shangguan Fixiao was stronger than him, Shangguan Wuidao was the current leader of the demon cult, so there was no need to kneel down before saluting. You said you called Shangguan Wuidao. Shangguan Fixiao looked at Shangguan Wuidao. Yes. Shangguan Wuidao nodded. Where is Shangguan Ao? Why doesn't he come to see me? When Shangguan Fixiao was in seclusion, Shangguan Ao was the leader of the demon cult. Shangguan Wuidao had not yet been born at that time. Therefore, Shangguan Fixiao was not familiar with Shangguan Wuidao. He had been in seclusion for 56 years and knew nothing about the outside world. Knowing that, I naturally want to meet the most familiar person at the first time, and Shangguan Ao is naturally the first choice. Facing Shangguan Fixiao's question, Shangguan Wudiao showed a trace of sadness on his face, shook his head and said, "Master has fallen." "What did you say?" As soon as these words came out, it was like thunder exploding in Shangguan Fixiao's ears, causing Shangguan Fixiao's face to change drastically, and he suddenly became furious. Boom! The terrifying breath started from Shangguan Fixiao erupted, and the surrounding void was instantly enveloped in murderous aura. Even if the great master came here, he would be cut into pieces and die instantly with murderous aura. When the emperor was angry, millions of corpses would float. Shangguan Fixiao was the superior of the demon section. The leader, like the previous emperors of the Shangguan clan, rose from the ranks of killings from an early age, and has many dead souls under his control. When he is angry, he can be 100 times more terrifying than an ordinary emperor. Tell me clearly what is going on. Shangguan Fixiao looked furious and stared at Shangguan Wudiao. Shangguan Wudiao looked at Shangguan Fixiao and said, "Master died at the hands of Emperor Apocalypse Xiao Zhantian." Later, Shangguan Wudiao told the ins and outs of the matter one by one, especially the Tiankai Yuan Wu Emperor Xiao Zhantian and the grudges between him and the demon sect. Speaking of enemies, the biggest enemy of the demon sect is naturally the Xia family, and Xiao Zhantian can definitely be ranked second. After listening to Shangguan Wudiao's explanation, Shangguan Fixiao looked uncertain. He did not expect that during his period of seclusion, such a peerless monster would appear in the world. He had heard of King Yuping of Daliang. After all, King Yuping was exterminated more than 60 years ago, and he was not in seclusion at that time. At that time, when he heard that King Yuping's lineage had been exterminated, Shangguan Fixiao sighed, "When the birds are gone, the good bows are hidden, the cunning rabbits are dead, and the lackeys are cooked." As a member of the royal family, he has long been accustomed to such things. But Shangguan Fixiao did not expect that a descendant of an exterminated family would give birth to a peerless evildoer like Xiao Zhantian Zero. In just a few decades, he has actually cultivated to the realm of heaven and man, and it is not an ordinary heaven and man, but the third realm of heaven and man. Not only did he single-handedly wipe out the Daliang royal family, change dynasties, ascend the throne and proclaim himself emperor, he also killed Xianzun of his demon sect. In addition to Suanzun Shangguan Ao, several demon sect protectors died at the hands of Xiao Zhantian. This Xiao Zhantian really deserves to be killed. Shangguan Fixiao's expression was cold, his eyes were like lightning, flashing with cold light. The ancestor is right. Shangguan Wudiao agreed, and then said, "But Xiao Zhantian is too strong, killing him is not an easy task." Xiao Zhantian became famous in one battle. He killed Gang Xiang, the ancestor of Bodhi Temple, and Shangguan Ao, the Suanzun of demon sect, with 1 against 2. He was definitely the third level of heaven and human strength. And he is by no means a weak opponent in the third level. In Shangguan Wudiao's view, there may be someone in the world who can defeat Xiao Zhantian, but absolutely no one dares to say that he is 100% sure of killing Xiao Zhantian. Even the sword ancestor Chang Kongwuji, who was previously recognized as the best in the world, not sure. Shangguan Wudiao, who is both in the third realm of heaven and human beings, can only avoid fighting. No one can kill him. Shangguan Fixiao also thinks so. He has been in seclusion for 56 years. Although his injuries have recovered, and he has gone one step further, he has committed suicide. Su is also a leader in the third realm of heaven and man. But there is no absolute certainty that he can kill Xiao Zhantian. He is also in the third realm of heaven and man, and he knows the strength of warriors in this realm best. If you want to kill Xiao Zhantian, you need to think carefully. Shangguan Wudiao looked at Shangguan Fixiao and said, "This time Wudiao asked the ancestor to come out of seclusion for the sake of my Shangguan clan's century-old revenge plan. After hundreds of years of searching by my Shangguan clan, the Holy Spirit hidden map and the jade were finally found." "Oh? Real? Shangguan. Fixiao looked at Shangguan Wudiao excitedly. Where are the Holy Spirit hidden pictures and the jade by? Bring them to me quickly. Even if the injury heals, Shangguan Fixiao's heart is surging, but he is not as excited as he is now. Ever since he obtained the Holy Spirit hidden map and the jade, Shangguan Wudiao has been carrying it with him. Unless he is killed, there is no way 0.4 will fall into the hands of others. Shangguan Wudiao taking out the Holy Spirit Tibetan map and the jade, Shangguan Fixiao raised his hand to grab it, and immediately took the Tibetan map and the jade into his hands. Looking at the clear route guidance on the Tibetan map and the stunningly beautiful jade, Shangguan Fixiao was extremely excited. It has been more than 100 years, a full 163 years, and the Holy Spirit hidden picture and jade have finally returned to the hands of my Shangguan clan. God has truly blessed my Shangguan family. Ha 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 ha. Shangguan Fixiao looked up to the sky and laughed, extremely happy. The hatred and sadness caused by Shangguan Ao's death were somewhat relieved by this incident. Although the hatred with Xiao Zhantian is heavy, no matter how heavy it is, it can't affect the restoration of the country. Zhan, the killing of Xiao Zhantian can be postponed and planned slowly, but the restoration of the country cannot be delayed. Have you ever sent someone to search for the place where the Holy Spirit has hidden maps and guidance? Shangguan Fixiao looked at Shangguan Wudiao and asked excitedly. Shangguan Wudiao nodded and said the route recorded in the Holy Spirit Tibetan map has been thousands of years ago. Many topography and landforms have changed, but overall it has not changed significantly. I have sent my secret guards to search carefully, and I think it will not take long before we can find the location of the tomb. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Martial arts, become invincible starting from the full level magic system. Author, Drunk in March at Westlake. Chapter 423. The map hidden by the Holy Spirit guides the place of the tomb, which is related to my Shangguan family's plan to restore the country, and there must be no room for error. I don't worry if I leave this matter to others, I will keep an eye on it personally. Shangguan Fixiao's expression was extremely solemn. Shangguan Wudiao nodded and said, in this case, everything will be perfect. Shangguan Fixiao glanced at the Holy Spirit hidden map in his hand and memorized all the routes in his heart. Then with a swish sound, it turned into a stream of light and shot out of the palace. The stream of light flew by and disappeared in the Blackbird Cave in an instant. Shangguan Fixiao came out of seclusion. The demon sect believers in Suanyao Cave were extremely excited, and their morale increased greatly. Looking at the light passing by, they all knelt down and said goodbye. And in an unknown corner, there was a gaze. I also saw Shangguan Fixiao passing by from the sky. There was no one here. To the naked eye, it was empty, with only empty air. But in fact, there was a transparent person here, and it was Xiao who was incarnated as the golden-faced Lion King. Wuxia. Defeat its sharpness, dissolve its edge, harmonize its light, and harmonize its dust. The supreme Taoist skill, harmonizing light and dust, is the top magical skill in the world. With Xiao Wuxia's state, he can blend into the surrounding environment to the point of being invisible to the naked eye. To the point. Coupled with the breath condensing technique to hide the breath, no one can detect the existence of Xiao Wuxia unless he is a strong person in the fourth realm of heaven. The entire Blackbird Cave has now become Xiao Wuxia's back garden. He can come whenever he wants. Just leave if you want. Even if he walked swaggeringly in front of Shangguan Wudiao, he couldn't find Xiao Wuxia's existence. This was Xiao Wuxia's first time to investigate the Suanyao Cave, and he didn't expect that he would gain a lot as soon as he came. Happened to see the scene when Shangguan Fixiao came out of seclusion. Shangguan Fixiao had been in seclusion for more than 50 years, and now he finally came out of seclusion, and as soon as he came out of seclusion, he hurriedly left Suanyao Cave. Moreover, it was him who left, so there was definitely something big going on. He wanted to do it. Xiao Wuji was in a hurry and quickly connected it with the broken picture, so he followed him quietly. Shang Guanfei walked on the clouds at an extremely fast speed, but Xiao Wuji kept following him. Behind his back, he completely grasped his whereabouts. Soon, Xiao Wuji followed Shang Guanfei Xiao to the Mobei of the Great Zhou dynasty. The Mobei of the Great Zhou dynasty is a desolate land. The climate here is arid, sparsely populated, and bandits are rampant. The young master of the Great Zhou dynasty there is a place of chaos. The binding force of the laws of the Great Zhou dynasty here is reduced to the minimum, and the court's control over the martial arts warriors is far less than in other regions. The spies of the Great Zhou Jinyue are all over the world, and of course there are also in Mobei. But the Jinyue here are also the martial arts sects in Mobei cannot be suppressed. Most of the martial arts sects located in Mobei are brave and unruly, and often have conflicts with the court. The Jinyue barely manage to maintain harmony with the various sects. This is the first time for Xiao Wuji to come to Mobei. But he is actually no stranger to Mobei. Because Xiao Wuji's first mass killing was to use the 7 evils of Mobei as his sacrifice. And the identity of the leader of the 7 evils of Mobei, the golden-faced Lion King, has always been unknown to him. Use it to this day. In order to better play the role of the golden-faced Lion King, Xiao Wuji investigated the background, origins, and past events of the 7 Shahs of Mobei, as well as the local customs, distribution of sects and backgrounds of powerful men in Mobei. Investigation. It can be said that although Xiao Wuji has never been to Mobei, he knows Mobei very well. Could it be that the treasure place guided by the residual map is in Mobei? Xiao Wuji thought about it and felt that it was somewhat possible. Generally, treasure places are hidden in sparsely populated places, so they can be preserved for hundreds of thousands of years without being discovered. The treasures that the demon sect is looking for must be extremely secret. However, Mobei is sparsely populated, with countless barren mountains and endless deserts. If there is a treasure hidden in it, without a map to guide it, even 100 years of searching will not find any trace. Night Evil Gate. What is Shang Guanfei Xiao doing here? Xiao Wuji followed Shang Guanfei Xiao from a distance and saw Shang Guanfei Xiao entering the Night Evil sect. Xiao Wuji knew that the Night Evil sect was a top sect in Mobei. The leader of the Night Evil sect, Ling Duankong, was a powerful Grand Master. He is both good and evil. He is as famous as the golden-faced Lion King, the leader of the 7 evils of Mobei. It is said that the strength of the two is about the same. Legend has it that Ling Duankong is cruel by nature, extremely bloodthirsty, and treats his enemies with no mercy. He is not merciful and kills people at every turn. In the land of Mobei, the Night Evil sect is very powerful, and few warriors dare to provoke the Night Evil sect. It seems that the Night Demon sect is also a branch of the demon cult. Xiao Wuji has known about the huge power of the demon cult for a long time, and is not surprised by it. The power of the demon cult has already penetrated into every corner of the Zhou dynasty, even Jinyue, Lai Amenmen, and Dongchang. I don't know how many spies have been planted, let alone in the Jianghu. Wasn't the original evil blood sect just a hidden child controlled by the Ghost Emperor's 7 killings and soul eaters? Taking rebellion as its own duty, rebelling against the destiny sect that has lasted for thousands of years. There is also the demon sect protector Kang Emperor Nangbiu behind the scenes. The same is true for the Night Evil sect now. Xiao Wuji sneaked into the Night Evil sect silently and soon found the location of Shang Guanfei Xiao. Shang Guanfei Xiao entered the night. The evil spirit opened the door and was welcomed into a secret room by Ling Duankong, a night evil spirit. Xiao Wuji could not see the two of them, but their conversation could not escape his consciousness. Xiao Wuji clearly heard the conversation between the two. The holy cult protector Ming Emperor and descendant Shang Guanju Ming pays homage to the ancestor. A respectful voice sounded. It was a clear voice. It turned out to be a woman's voice. "Get up," Shangguan Fixiao said. "Thank you, ancestor." The conversation between the two was clearly visible, and Xiao Wuji was slightly surprised. He did not expect that the person who met Shangguan Fixiao at the Night Evil Gate was actually the Underworld Emperor, one of the 6 guardians of the demon sect. And the famous Emperor Hades is actually a woman. Underworld Emperor Qi Hongchen was ranked 5th among the 6 protectors of the demon sect, and his strength was only slightly stronger than Kang Emperor Ningbiu. There is very little information about Qi Hongchen within the imperial court, because Qi Hongchen rarely kills people with his own hands. He always hides behind the scenes, manipulating other sects as tools to kill people for him. So now the court doesn't even know Qi Hongchen's gender. Xiao Wuji also found out today that the demon sect Underworld Emperor was actually a woman. But it makes sense if you think about it. There are many descendants of the Shangguan clan, and it is impossible for all the strong men to be men. There will always be women who are as good as men and will rise to the top. This Shangguan Juming is one of them. Through the conversation between the two, Xiao Wuji knew that the real master of the Night Evil sect, the Night Evil Ling Duankong, had already been killed by Emperor Hades. Back then, Emperor Hades seduced Ling Duankong with his beauty, making Ling Duankong obsessed with him and unable to extricate himself. He would rather abandon his wife and son than marry her. After getting married, Emperor Hades secretly got rid of Ling Duankong, and then controlled the entire Wuxia sect in the name of Ling Duankong. Today, more than 90% of the disciples in the Night Demon sect are members of the demon cult. Thinking about Ling Duankong, he was also a famous figure in the world back then. He lived a heroic life, but it was a pity that he was not a beauty. Because of his greed for beauty, he not only abandoned his wife and children, but also ruined his own life, and even ruined the centuries-old foundation of the Wuxia section. It is really pitiful and sad. After collecting the Holy Spirit Tibetan map, Shangguan Wudao confirmed that the treasure the demon sect was looking for was in Mobei, so the person responsible for finding the treasure tomb this time was Emperor Qi Hongchen. Now that Shangguan Fixiao was personally responsible for this operation, he naturally had to come to Qi Hongchen to take over. After Shangguan Fixiao arrived, he naturally took control of the entire Night Evil sect and searched for treasures for the demon sect. Xiao Wuji hid in the secret and listened clearly to the conversation between the two. People who know about the demon cult have been searching in Mobei for a while and have already gained some results. They think it won't be long before they can find the treasure. Now that Shangguan Fixiao is personally in charge, I think the Holy Spirit treasure is within easy reach. Listening to the laughter of the two people in the secret room, a sneer appeared on the corner of Xiao Wuji's mouth. The mantis stalks the cicada, followed by the oriole. If he wants to get the treasure, it depends on whether he, the oriole, agrees. Throwing out a scrap of useless pictures and broken jade, in exchange for the entire demon sect searching for treasures for him, this deal is not a loss at all. Now it depends on whose methods are tougher. Let you live a little longer. Xiao Wuji glanced coldly at the location of the secret room, turned around and turned into mist and dissipated invisible. 297 From the beginning to the end, Shangguan Fixiao in the secret room did not notice the existence of Xiao Wuji. Although it was just an incarnation, it was after all the soul of the fourth realm of heaven and man is not comparable to that of Shangguan Fixiao, the third realm of heaven and man. Whoosh! The stream of light pierced the sky, and Xiao Wuji had returned to the Seven Kills Tower in the blink of an eye. The headquarters of the Seven Kills Tower is now it has been moved to the Apocalypse Kingdom, but there is still a branch in the Great Zhou dynasty. And the person in charge of the branch is the Man-Elephant King. See your majesty, long live my emperor. Seeing Xiao Wuji's arrival, the Man-Elephant King was startled and shivered all over. He quickly knelt down and saluted to greet him. A long time ago, the Man-Elephant King was also a domineering and unruly maniac. But after seeing Xiao Wuji's strength, he could no longer be arrogant. He knew what kind of figure his master was. He was an unparalleled overlord who destroyed a country with one man and slaughtered millions. In front of such a person, he didn't dare to be a bit unruly, and even his breathing slowed down several times. Xiao Wuji took a deep look at the barbarian Elephant King, and said calmly, "Sit down." "Thank you, Your Majesty." The Man-Elephant King responded respectfully, and then stood up, but kept his back hunched and his head lowered, not daring to look at Xiao Wuji. Xiao Wuji said calmly, "Gather all the 7 killing tower killers in Dazhu and sneak into Mobei in batches to hide their traces. Wait for my order. No one is allowed to eat without my order." "Yes, I obey the order." The Man-Elephant King bowed his head and accepted the order. As for Xiao Wuji's will, he did not need to ask or think about it, he only needed to obey the order and do it. Soon, Xiao Wuji's order was issued, and all the 7 lurking in the territory of Great Zhou, the killers, all rushed to Mobei quietly. Most of these people had public identities in the world, and they were scattered in every corner of the Zhou dynasty. Now they rushed to Mobei in batches without attracting the attention of others. So, the people of the demon cult did not expect that when they were searching hard for the treasure, the Oriole had already opened its mouth and was ready to eat. Martial arts, become invincible starting from the full-level magic system. Author, Drunk in March at West Lake. Chapter 424. Imperial City Jinling, inside Tongtian Pavilion. Xia Aishi sat cross-legged, closed his eyes and meditated, his aura flowing around his body, transforming into strange beasts from all directions. Xia Lushan was sitting next to him, his face was pale, his breathing was fast and slow, and he was doing exercises to heal his injuries. Suddenly, Xia Lushan's face suddenly turned red, he groaned, and a trace of blood spilled from the corner of his mouth. But Xia Lushan still closed his eyes tightly and remained motionless. Injuries from heaven and man are not so easy to heal. Especially Xia Lushan was seriously injured by Wu Wudi. Even with the support of the 1,000-year elixir from the great Zhou royal family and the assistance of Xia Aishi, Xia Lushan's injuries could not be healed in a short time. Buzz. Suddenly, a soft chant suddenly sounded. Xia Aishi and Xia Lushan opened their eyes at the same time, their eyes fierce and murderous. "This is Tongtian Pavilion, the most secret place in the territory of the Great Zhou dynasty, and also a forbidden place for all outsiders. Even the emperor must be notified in advance before entering, let alone outsiders." As the soft chant reached their ears, a cold light bloomed in their 4 eyes at the same time. It was a sword light, coming from nowhere, as fast as lightning, cutting through the space, and shooting straight towards the center of Xia Aishi's eyebrows. That's right, it was not targeting the seriously injured Xia Lushan, but the healthy Xia Aishi. Snort. Xia Aishi snorted coldly, raised his hand and struck the sword light with the palm, which immediately knocked the sword light away from the direction. With a whoosh, the sword light hit the wall of Tongtian Pavilion. With the power of the sword light, it would be easy to penetrate Tongtian Pavilion. But when the sword light hit the wall, it exploded automatically, leaving sword marks on the wall. The sword marks put together exactly form the characters Shi. The demon sect Shangguan Fixiao came out of seclusion and recovered from his injuries. He has now arrived in Mobei, where the survival of the great Zhou dynasty depends on it. "Father, I will chase you." Xia Lushan looked fierce and wanted to get up and chase them out. Launching an attack on Tongtian Pavilion would definitely slap them in the face. How can they bear it? However, Xia Aishi shook his head and said, "No need, you can't catch up." He looked at the big words left on the wall and said with a solemn expression, "This person is a swordsman, and his strength is no less than mine. Besides, this sword energy is coming from thousands of miles away, where are you going to chase it?" "Shot from thousands of miles away. How can this be?" Xia Lushan was extremely shocked. He didn't believe that someone could shoot a sword energy from thousands of miles away and hit Tongtian Pavilion in the palace. What kind of strength does this require? He would never be able to do it anyway. Xiaoyashi blocked it with his own hands. He was the only one who knew the power of the sword energy. He knew that the sword energy did not contain killing intent, but was just a test and a message. Looking at himself on the wall, Xiaoyashi had no expression on his face, but he was shocked in his heart. There were waves, and there was a faint murderous intention. He did not expect that Shang Guanfixiao actually came out of seclusion. More than 50 years ago, he was the one who designed to break through the demon sect's lair and seriously injured Shang Guanfixiao. In that battle, the demon sect suffered heavy casualties. Shang Guanfixiao sacrificed half his life before escaping with some remnants of the demon cult, and has been missing ever since. Xiaoyashi originally thought that after that battle, even if Shang Guanfixiao did not die, he would definitely become a useless person. From then on, there was no power that could match him. After more than 50 years, Shang Guanfixiao could not come out of seclusion and disappeared, which seemed to confirm his suspicion. Who knew that Shang Guanfixiao actually came out of seclusion and recovered from his injuries? This means his plans more than 50 years ago were all in vain. How could he not make Xiaoyashi angry? In Xiaoyashi's view, the so-called 3 demons, 6 emperors and 9 guardians of the demon sect are all ants. Under heaven and man, all the great, no matter how many masters there are, they can't shake the foundation of the Zhou dynasty. Only heavenly beings, and Shang Guanfixiao, who is in the 3rd realm of heavenly beings, are the absolute formidable enemies of the great Zhou dynasty. But now that this great enemy has reappeared, it's like a longing in his heart. If a thorn sticks out, Xiaoyashi will not be happy for a moment unless it is pulled out. This old dog has a great life. Xiaoyashi snorted coldly, suppressing his anger in his heart for the time being. Father, this person came here with a message. I am afraid that the person who came here is not good. Xia. Lucian said from the side. He was not a fool. He could tell at a glance that the person who sent the message was trying to sow discord, kill people with a borrowed knife, and stir up a war between Dazhu and the demon sect. Maybe, this person is hiding in the dark, waiting for the opportunity. The fisherman will benefit. Logically speaking, they have seen through the other party's plan, and they should slowly figure it out and find a way to break the situation. However, the person sent a message that it was related to the survival of the Zhou dynasty, which meant that there was not much time left for them. Moreover, this was a conspiracy. Even if they knew it was a trap, they had to jump. Because the great Zhou dynasty and the remnants of the demon sect were absolutely mortal enemies who would never stop fighting. Xiaoyashi did not doubt the authenticity of the content of the subpoena, because if it was false, that's too shallow and can't stand up to verification. Shang Guanfixiao has been in seclusion for many years. After coming out of seclusion, he immediately rushed to Mobei. Something big is definitely happening in Mobei. Xia. Ayashi said with a solemn expression. Luo Tian, you immediately summon all the royal family members and rush to Mobei, and at the same time send troops to Mobei. This trip is related to the survival of our Zhou dynasty for thousands of years, and there is no room for failure. Once any abnormalities are discovered, they will be killed without mercy. Yes, I obey. Xia. Lucian replied seriously. I take the first step. A phantom walked out of Xiaoyashi's body, and it was his heavenly incarnation. The heavenly incarnation carried the deity, turned into a stream of light, shot out of Tongtian Pavilion, and flew to Mobei. The deity himself cannot travel thousands of miles in an instant, only incarnation can do that. This matter was so important that Xiaoyashi didn't want to wait for a moment and rushed directly to Mobei. After Xiaoyashi left, Xia Lucian also appeared in the imperial study room of the palace and summoned Emperor Jingtai. Then an order was issued to summon all the royal family to worship, reorganize the troops and send troops to Mobei. The royal family is attached to the imperial court. Although it is a vassal, its status is extremely high. For some powerful worshippers, even the emperor must be courteous and dare not neglect. But this call is different. I received the call order. None of the royal family members dared to delay, and they all rushed to the palace immediately to obey the order. Masters from the Jinyue, Liamen, Dongchang, and Sixiang legions also gathered. Except for leaving some to guard the imperial city, most of the masters will rush to Mobei with the army. What happened? His Majesty actually issued the imperial order No. 1. In the Jinyue town of Fuzi, Yuan Xiong looked at the decree in his hand with an unprecedented serious expression. The emperor's first order was a legend. He had only heard about it before, but had never seen it. Even if the two countries went to war, the emperor with the number 1 imperial order has never been issued. Because only the ancestors of the imperial family are qualified to issue the number 1 imperial order. Looking at the number 1 imperial order in his hand, Yuan Xiong knew that it was Emperor Jingtai who issued the order in name, but behind the scenes it was the royal family. The ancestor is controlling. This also means that the great Zhou dynasty is at a critical moment of life and death. Without any warning or prelude, the war suddenly broke out, catching Yuan Xiong off guard. Many Jinyue were also caught off guard. 99% of the Jinyue were still alive at this moment. I was confused and had no idea what was going on. There was a lot of noise in Bijin Fuzi, and many Jinyue were whispering to each other and talking about it. In the end, Yuan Xiong stopped him with a word. Everyone, Your Majesty has a decree, ordering us and other royal guards to rush to Mobei immediately. I have decided to lead a group of elites to Mobei first, and you will follow Fan Tebeo. This mission is of great importance, and there is no guarantee of victory but no defeat. If you disobey orders, you will be killed without mercy. Shocked by Yuan Xiong's momentum, all the Jinyue were moved. They all felt the sense of oppression on Yuan Xiong's body and knew that this mission was definitely not simple. Although they don't even know what mission they are going to perform. Okay, everyone assemble immediately and set off. Yuan Xiong gave the order, and Bijin Fuzi immediately rioted in an orderly manner. Teams of Jinyue gathered and left Bijin Fuzi under the leadership of Shang Guan. Yuan Xiong, on the other hand, led a group of thousands of households and left Jinling first. Rushing to Mobei. Accompanying him are many royal ministers, 6 door masters, and Dongchang masters. The weakest of these people are masters, and there are no less than 10 grand masters like Yuan Xiong. The great Zhou dynasty, it can be said that this time is the best. The wind is coming. On a high mountain outside Jinling city, Xiao Wuji stood on the top of the cliff, with his hands behind his back, a smile on his face. All the heroes in the world were just chess pieces, and he was the only one who stirred up the wind and clouds. This feeling is very good. The Zhou dynasty is so big. Of course, his actions cannot be concealed from the eyes and ears of the people in the world. The first one to discover that the imperial army was dispatched was the demon sect's hidden agents planted around Jinling city. The entrance to the demon church around Jinling was almost washed clean by Xiao Wuji's blood, but the devil sect has hidden secrets in the rivers and lakes, but it is impossible to kill them all. After these people discovered that the imperial court mobilized an army to Mobei, they reported the news as soon as possible. With the level of these secrets, they didn't know that the demon sect had a major operation in Mobei. But they discovered that the imperial court was mobilizing a large army, so they naturally reported the news. In addition to the demon sect, Old Man Tianji, Buddhism and Taoism, Jianmen, many Jianghu sects, and other imperial spies, have also received the news. The Great Zhou court came out in force this time, and the force they mobilized was simply more terrifying than the war between the two countries, which made those foreign spies tremble with fear. The royal Grand Master was enshrined, Liamen, Dongchang, Jinyue, and the Four Elephants Legion, such a force is simply going to destroy a country. In the face of this force, except for the other three of the four kingdoms in the world, other small countries will definitely collapse at the first touch, and the fate of their country and species will be destroyed. The news spread quickly throughout the world. In all directions, countless homing pigeons flew over the territory of Great Zhou. Countless forces were having trouble sleeping and eating. Especially the senior officials of the Mobei sect were frightened to death. The Mobei sect has always refused to obey the teachings. They have repeatedly opposed the imperial court and are arrogant and domineering in the world. But they know in their hearts that although they can wrestle with the imperial court on the surface, it is because the imperial court has not made up its mind to deal with them. Once the imperial court makes up its mind to eliminate them, there is absolutely no power to fight back, and it is bound to be the end of destruction. Suddenly, the wind in Mobei is roaring, and everyone is in danger. And the demon sect who has received the news will naturally not remain indifferent. Hello no, where did the news leak out? In the Night Evil sect, Shangguan Fixiao was furious. The cold murderous aura enveloped the entire Night Evil sect, and all the demon sect members knelt on the ground, trembling. Ancestor makes atonement for his sins. It was his subordinates who failed to do things well, so please punish me. Underworld Emperor Qi Hongchen half knelt on the ground, bowing her head to plead guilty. She did not quibble, nor did she shirk responsibility. This time the news was leaked, whether it was accidentally leaked by her subordinates or not, she must bear joint responsibility. The Holy Spirit treasure is related to the demon cult. There is no room for failure in the century-old plan to restore the country. At this moment, the news is leaked that the demon sect has lost its advantage, and there is no way to deny her guilt. Shangguan Fixiao looked at Ming Emperor Qi Hongchen who was kneeling in front of him, and his eyes were filled with cold light. There was so much for a moment, he had the intention to kill Emperor Ming. But soon, he suppressed this murderous intention. Emperor Ming is a descendant of the Shangguan clan, with pure blood, and is also his descendant. It is absolutely impossible for him to betray. And because he has worked conscientiously for the demon sect, he has made great contributions. In addition, he is the core high-level member of the demon sect and has great combat power. It is impossible for him to kill Emperor Hades casually and weaken his own combat power. Check immediately, find out where the news was leaked from. After finding it, chop it into minced meat, crush the bones and throw away the ashes. Shangguan Fixiao ordered in a cold voice, his murderous intention made all the demon sect members tremble with fear. Yes, I obey. Underworld Emperor Qi Hongchen listened respectfully to the order and breathed a sigh of relief in her heart. Even though she was a great master, she still had a sense of danger of death when facing the furious Shangguan Fixiao. Martial arts, become invincible starting from the full-level magic system. Author, Drunk in March at Westlake. Chapter 425. The Lair of the Demon Sect, the Blackbird Cave. In the main hall, Shangguan Wudao's face was as cold as ice, and his body exuded a chill. News of this trip has been leaked, and there must be a traitor within our holy religion. Be sure to check everything clearly. But those who are suspected will be killed without mercy. Shangguan Wudao spoke clearly, every word was like a knife, and his murderous intention was already boiling. Subordinates obey. The confidant died after receiving the order and quickly exited the hall. In the hall, there was another person standing. That person's body was upright, like a giant pillar holding up the sky, and his aura was extremely fierce. This person was the only three remaining demons in the demon section. The last demon, the inner demon, laughs at the common people. The inner demon laughs at the common people. The inner demon's real name is Shangguan Sin, and he is the bloodline of the orthodox Shangguan royal family. Leader, although it is important to track down the traitor, the top priority is to support Mobei. The inner demon Shangguan Zy looked at Shangguan Wuidao and said slowly, the traitors of the Xia family will definitely come out in full force and rush to Mobei to encircle and suppress the ancestor when they learn that their ancestor has left seclusion. According to the intelligence report, the elite of the imperial court has been dispatched, and the army will arrive soon. With our military strength in Mobei, we cannot stop the imperial army, let alone Xiaoyashi. According to common sense, when it was learned that the imperial court sent a large army to Mobei for encirclement and suppression, the demonic cult should retreat. At this time, retreating is the best strategy. However, the Holy Spirit treasure in Mobei is too important, and the demonic cult cannot give up under any circumstances. Even if it means starting a war with the imperial court because of this. Shangguan Wuidao looked indifferent, and his thoughts were ups and downs. Suddenly he clenched his fists and said coldly, pass this order to activate all the secret agents in Jinling, and bring trouble to Jinling, the messy the better. At the same time, summon Black Emperor and White Emperor and ask them to implement the purge plan. The inner demon Shangguan Zy's pupils narrowed slightly and he said, at this time, Qiyang Black Emperor and White Emperor, their identities may be leaked. Shangguan Wuidao said coldly, if it's leaked, it's leaked. My Shangguan family's plan to restore the country for 100 years is now. There's no point in hiding any longer. Tell them that this trip comes at any cost. I only want one result, and Dezhou will be as chaotic as he wants. Success or failure depends on today's battle. 437. Shangguan Wuidao's voice was firm and decisive, and every word was like a knife. People could hear the firmness in his voice. Yes, I obey. The demon Shangguan had no doubt that he was guilty, and he respectfully accepted the order. When he turned around, his figure turned into a shadow, slowly dissipated, and completely disappeared into the hall. Shangguan Wuidao slowly stood up, stepped out, and already arrived outside the palace. The next moment, an incarnation of heaven and man walked out of his body and disappeared into the Blackbird Cave. In the blink of an eye, the incarnation of Shangguan Wuidao had arrived inside the Supreme Alliance. Who? Anyone who dares to break into the Supreme Alliance is seeking death. Someone come. Someone come quickly. This time, Shangguan Wuidao did not hide his whereabouts. So as soon as he appeared, he was discovered by the secret guards of the Supreme Alliance. Someone invaded the Supreme Alliance, and a riot broke out within the Supreme Alliance. Countless warriors came from all directions. The two great masters, the Grand Master appeared at the same time, intercepting Shangguan Wuidao one after another. There were countless archers around, and the hidden weapon masters locked onto Shangguan Wuidao. With just one order, endless murderous intent would erupt at the same moment. Who are you? How dare you break into the Supreme Alliance and risk your life? A Grand Master shouted angrily. This man was originally a notorious Grand Master in the world, with countless lives under his command, and an arrogant and domineering personality. Later, he was manipulated by Shangguan Wuidao using the soul-moving method and became his chess piece and lackey. Supreme Alliance, although it was founded not long ago, its reputation is far-reaching and it is the top martial arts holy place in the world. Since its establishment, no one has dared to challenge the majesty of the Supreme Alliance. Shangguan Wuidao is still the first. Faced with the cold drink from the visitor, Shangguan Wuidao has no expression on his face. Just glanced at him coldly. Just at this glance, the Grand Master felt as if he had fallen into an ice cellar, unable to move his whole body, and even his consciousness came to a standstill. A terrifying aura erupted, instantly covering the entire Supreme Alliance, and all warriors. All the murderous aura was suppressed. But at this moment, a voice suddenly sounded. The voice was like waves, and it instantly defeated Shangguan Wuidao's aura. Master Shangguan, I came here late at night. I don't know what you are doing. Since you are here, please come in and talk. The bronze door of the Supreme Alliance Hall opened automatically. Shangguan Wuidao stepped out and was already in the hall, and the bronze door closed automatically. Above the hall, Wu Wudi sat on it, looking at Shangguan Wuidao expressionlessly. Master Shangguan came here at night, I wonder what he is doing. If you have any problem, just go to me, why bother the people below? Shangguan Wuidao cupped his hands and said, Master Wu, please calm down. It's just that the guards of the Supreme Alliance were too powerful and found traces of me, which caused misunderstandings. I came here tonight because I have important matters to discuss with the leader of the Martial Alliance. Wu Wudi sneered in his heart. Shangguan Wuidao is really full of lies. I'm afraid even he himself doesn't believe these words. The Supreme Alliance is just a cannon fodder organization founded by Xiao Wuji. The people under his command are all dispensable pawns. They are dead. He would not feel bad. So from the beginning, Xiao Wuji had not properly trained his subordinates. The so-called defensive power was out of the question. With Shangguan Wuidao's strength, it was very easy to sneak in quietly. It can be done. But when he comes tonight, he has no intention of hiding his whereabouts. And when he shows up, he will tell the world about the collusion between the demon cult and the Supreme Alliance. It won't be long before this news will spread to the world. You know. His purpose in doing this is to cut off the Supreme Alliance's retreat, so that the Supreme Alliance cannot escape from this whirlpool and can only follow the path of the demon cult to the dark side. Leader Wu, I have received news that the elites of the Great Zhou dynasty are gathering towards Mobei at this moment. Our demonic church sent people to disrupt the entire Great Zhou dynasty, and asked the leader of the Wu Alliance to keep his promise and rush to Mobei with me to kill the elite warriors of the Great Zhou dynasty. If we can complete our work in one battle, after victory, you and I will share the world. Shangguan Wuidao's eyes ignited with blazing fire, and every word he spoke was sonorous and powerful, making people's blood boil. How many people can share the world together since ancient times? Wu Wudi naturally, he knew what Shangguan Wuidao was thinking, but this was also part of his plan. Of course he would not refuse at this moment. He nodded and said, I will send the main force of the Supreme Alliance to Mobei. Well, Alliance leader Wu really kept his promise and everything is going according to plan. Shangguan Wuidao nodded with satisfaction, then turned around and disappeared into a stream of light. After Shangguan Wuidao left, Wu Wudi smiled evilly, and his hazy body suddenly turned into Xiao Wuji's appearance. This kind of thing hidden behind the scenes stirs up the world. The feeling of controlling chess pieces is really wonderful and intoxicating. Everything is under my control. Next, it depends on whether Xiaoyashi and the Imperial Army can do anything. Xiao Wuji whispered, and lightly snapped his fingers. There was only a click sound, and a hole suddenly opened in the ceiling of the hall. The moonlight shone down, and all the stars in the sky came into view. In the eyes of ordinary people, the stars tonight and it was no different in the past. But in Xiao Wuji's eyes, the stars tonight were completely different from those in the past. Especially the Ziwei Emperor star in the starry sky, which was extremely shining and emitted a thick purple light, reflecting almost half of the night sky. The brilliance of all the stars in the sky combined cannot compare to that one Ziwei Emperor star. The general trend of the world is that if it unites for a long time, it must divide, and if it divides for a long time, it will close. Heroes emerge in troubled times. The world has been divided for thousands of years. It's time to unify. Xiao Wuji is not the only one who can see through the strange phenomena in the stars. Old man Tianji can also see through the strange phenomena in the stars. His pupils are as white as snow, he looks up at the purple stars in the sky, and then looks towards the direction of Mobei. Suddenly he let out a long sigh, this is destiny, the trend is irreversible. After saying that, old man Tianji raised his head and drank the wine in the glass. In a flash, he disappeared into the brothel. After the graceful courtesan came back from bathing, there was no trace of old man Tianji anymore. Only a figure was seen on the table. A banknote. Old man Tianji's indulgence in flowers is never in vain. He is a flower shopper with good taste. Soon, Taoist sect, Buddhist sect, Jianmen sect, and many Jianghu sects all knew that the imperial court mobilized an army and rushed to Mobei. Things. With the imperial court so aggressive, there must be great changes in Mobei. Courageous warriors rushed to Mobei from all directions, trying to see if there was any opportunity to take advantage. But at the same moment, a plague broke out in Jinling. This plague it came quickly and fiercely, without any warning, and broke out suddenly. In just one night, more than 10,000 people in Jinling city were infected with the plague. Not only that, the plague spread very quickly, because the blockade was not in place, and it was still spreading in all directions. Spread. Although the imperial court urgently dispatched former officials to control the plague and treat the people, it was still a step late. There were already too many people infected with the disease. Jinling city was also the imperial city of the great Zhou dynasty with so many people that it was impossible to completely block it off like a small village. The chaos of the plague, there is already a trend of getting out of control. The demon sect really does whatever it takes to achieve great things. After Xiao Wuji learned the news, he immediately thought that this was the handiwork of the demon sect. Ever since the Kang Emperor Nangbiu incident, Xiao Wuji had suspected that there was a traitor from the demon sect in the court. The demon sect has been lurking for hundreds of years, and Jin Yue, Lai Yufan, there are definitely countless traitors in the demon sect in Men and Dongchang. Some of these traitors have high status, and some have low status. Those with low status may just be horse slaves who collect horse dung, or servants who pour night fragrance. These people cannot obtain any court secrets at all, but they can play a big role in large numbers. Just like this plague incident. It looks like a plague, but it is actually poison. And the poison can spread so quickly and cause such a large-scale outbreak. Yes, it can definitely be done by multiple people taking action at the same time. Fortunately, I had already taken Wanu's family away from Jinling. Long before the war started, Xiao Wuji had secretly sent someone to take his wife and family away from Jinling city. They were placed in a safe place, protected by Xiao Wuji's confidants, and were absolutely safe. In this way, Xiao Wuji had no worries anymore. No matter how many people die in Jinling city, it will not affect him. Today's dog emperor should be on fire, right? Then let me add fuel to his fire. Xiao Wuji thought of Emperor Jingtai, the dog emperor. Emperor Jingtai was not a qualified emperor. He relied on treacherous ministers, which caused factional strife in the court and people in the world to live in dire straits. He had personally experienced the chaos in northern Xinjiang. The scene of starvation and corpses everywhere, it is still vivid in my mind. And the person who caused all this is Emperor Jingtai. Xiao Wuji has long had the idea of killing the king, but he has always suppressed it in his heart and did not take action. Now that troubled times are coming, this dog emperor should also do something for him. I paid the price for what I did. Fortunately, there is a knife that I have kept until now, and it comes in handy. Xiao Wuji smiled evilly at the corner of his mouth, and took one step forward, already arriving at the palace. Xiao Wuji arrived just in time. At this time of chaos in Jinling city, Prince Xia Zhengming and the noble concubine Li Binjiun still had time to steal jade for a secret meeting. Xiao Wuji secretly he took action, shot a note into the Deluo palace, and informed Emperor Jingtai about the two of them. The most intolerable thing for a man is to be cuckolded. This involves a man's dignity. Not to mention that this man is the king of a country. The Supreme Emperor. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Martial arts, become invincible starting from the full level magic system. Author, Drunk in March at West Lake. Chapter 426. The most intolerable thing for a man is to be cuckolded. This involves a man's dignity. Not to mention that this man is the king of a country, the supreme emperor. The emperor is humiliated. How can he vent his anger? Xiaoji saw it with his own eyes tonight. Emperor Jingtai was shocked by the note shot into the Deluo Hall, but with Xia Yongxuan on the list, Emperor Jingtai felt at ease. Xia Yongxuan stepped forward and took the note off the wall, feeling shocked. Your Majesty, this person has extremely profound skills and must be guarded against. Being able to insert a thin piece of paper into the hard wall of Deluo Hall is enough to prove the strength of the visitor. Present it for a look. Emperor Jingtai took the note, opened it and read it. After just one word, his face changed drastically. Xia Yongxuan watched as Emperor Jingtai's face changed from normal to red. In an instant, Emperor Jingtai's face turned blood red. There were veins on his forehead and neck. He stood up violently, his eyes were extremely fierce, and his face was distorted, like an evil ghost. Evil creature! Evil creature! Emperor Jingtai suddenly let out a roar, and the master's internal energy burst out from his body, and he was suspected of committing crimes. The note in his hand had been shattered into powder by him, and even the alchemy furnace in the hall was overturned by him. Xia Yongxuan has followed Emperor Jingtai for many years, I have never seen Emperor Jingtai look so furious. Even when Yong'an King Xia Yuanhao rebelled, he had never lost his temper like this. It can be seen that the note must have recorded secret things, involving the bottom line in Emperor Jingtai's heart. Xia Yongxuan is very smart, and there is no ask, just bow your head and step aside. Evil creature! This damn evil! I can't spare him. Emperor Jingtai stood up suddenly and shouted coldly, Xia Yongxuan, come with me. Xia Yongxuan said quickly. Your Majesty must summon the guards, and there is also the mysterious man outside. We must be on guard. Emperor Jingtai's eyes were gloomy, he glanced at Xia Yongxuan coldly and said, send an order to the imperial army to search the entire palace after I leave. Anyone suspicious will be arrested and killed without mercy. Obey. Xia Yongxuan bowed his head respectfully to accept the order, but there was a cold feeling in his heart. He was glanced at by Emperor Jingtai just now, and he keenly sensed a murderous aura. This proved that Emperor Jingtai had murderous intentions towards him just now. This made him feel murderous. Xia Yongxuan was extremely vigilant. He had been loyal to Emperor Jingtai for decades and saved Emperor Jingtai from fire and water many times. Emperor Jingtai also had great trust in him. It can be said that as long as Xia Yongxuan did not rebel or test the monarchy, Emperor Jingtai would not be able to attack him. Murderous intention. Xia Yongxuan has this confidence. However, at that moment, Emperor Jingtai had murderous intention. This made Xia Yongxuan even more certain that the secret contained in the note definitely related to Emperor Jingtai, and it could not be known to outsiders. Even if that person was him, Xia Yongxuan, whom he trusted the most, could not do it and wanted to silence him. Emperor Jingtai hurriedly left the Deluo Hall, his steps were very fast and his face was extremely angry. He did have the intention to kill Xia Yongxuan just now. It was related to the dignity of the emperor and the face of the royal family. He knew this. All those responsible must be silenced. But after thinking about it, Emperor Jingtai gave up the idea. After all, Xia Yongxuan had never read the note and did not know the content, and he was loyal to him and worthy of trust. Besides, this is a critical period, and the elite experts of the imperial court they were all mobilized, the imperial city was empty, and the guards around him were already too weak. If Xia Yongxuan was killed, he might not be able to protect himself. Soon, Emperor Jingtai brought Xia Yongxuan to Shuixian Palace, which was the palace of the noble concubine Li Binjiun. Li Binjiun is the youngest daughter of Chief Assistant Li Wenbo. The Li family was wiped out by Xiaoji, and only Li Binjiun survived. Seeing the emperor's arrival, the guards outside the Shuixian palace gate immediately wanted to salute and greet him, but were stopped by Emperor Jingtai. Killed with one slap. Emperor Jingtai's martial arts qualifications were not high. Even though he had countless supplies of heavenly materials and earthly treasures from the royal family, he could only practice to the master level. This was done with medicine, so his internal strength was weak and his combat power was extremely low. But the master, after all, he is a master, and it is still very easy to kill two guards who are not talented. Xia Yongxuan was also stunned for a moment. He did not expect that the emperor would directly kill people as soon as he came to Shuixian Palace. Emperor Jingtai glanced at the gate of Shuixian Palace indifferently. Without looking at Xia Yongxuan again, he said calmly, "You wait outside. No one can come in without my will. If anyone approaches Narcissus Palace, no matter their identity, they will be killed without mercy." After saying that, without waiting for Xia Yongxuan's response, Emperor Jingtai entered the Shuixian Palace. The Shuixian Palace is the imperial concubine's palace, and there are many maids and eunuchs serving them. Originally, they should be keeping vigil at this time. But when the emperor entered the Shuixian Palace, he was surprised. It was found that the Shuixian Palace was completely dark, and none of the eunuchs and maids who were keeping watch at night were seen. Obviously, these people were rejected. Only a few people hid in the darkness to supervise the control, but they were all mercilessly killed by Emperor Jingtai. Soon, Emperor Jingtai came to the palace where Li Binjiun was. In the entire Shuixian Palace, only this palace had lights shining inside, and outside the palace, there were several palace ladies standing guard. These palace ladies were always paying attention to every move around them. Obviously he was guarding the door for Li Binjiun. Seeing this scene, Emperor Jingtai became even more angry. Everything in the Shuixian Palace proved that what the note said was true. The last hope in his heart was shattered. Knowing the truth, Emperor Jingtai was furious, but he still had a trace of reason. He hoped that what the note said was false and was trying to instigate a relationship between him and the prince. However, after seeing it with his own eyes, Emperor Jingtai could not tolerate disbelief. "Damn bitch!" Emperor Jingtai's eyes were filled with tears. He swayed and arrived at the door of the palace in an instant. The maids outside the door noticed the emperor's arrival and were all frightened to death. But before they could even utter a warning, they were pinched by Emperor Jingtai. Broken neck. A master with keen senses. Emperor Jingtai stood at the door and heard the sound coming from the palace. The sound was about to make him lose his mind, and his chest almost exploded. Bang! Emperor Jingtai kicked the door of the palace to pieces. The door shattered into pieces, and before it hit the ground, Emperor Jingtai had already rushed into the palace. Ah! A sound of panic came. Emperor Jingtai saw the two people behind the gauze tent at a glance, as well as the prince's rower. Who? The prince was so angry that he was disturbed and opened the gauze curtain. Then he saw the person he was most afraid of in his life. Emperor Jingtai looked at him expressionlessly. Looking at him, a cold light overflowed in his eyes, and the murderous aura almost froze all the blood in his body. "Father, father, father!" The prince's face was pale and trembling. He couldn't say the word father completely, and he rolled and fell from the bed. He was trembling with fear, his mind went blank, and his heart was extremely desperate. Li Binjiun on the bed was also frightened to death. Her body was cold, and she knew that her death was imminent. Emperor Jingtai glanced at the two of them indifferently and said coldly, "Okay, you are really my good son. Why didn't I see it before that my prince actually has such courage and courage? Awesome, really awesome. I will look at you, the prince, in a new light. Father, father." The prince's pocket was like sifting chaff, and he could not say a word. He knelt on the ground, his whole body weak. He could not think of a way to break the situation except despair. He never thought that his affairs would be exposed and the emperor would catch him. Bitch, you deserve to die. Emperor Jingtai glanced at Li Binjiun indifferently, raised his hand and struck out with the palm, hitting Li Binjiun's vital point between the eyebrows. With a bang, Li Binjiun's head exploded, and only the headless body collapsed. Ah! Seeing Li Binjiun being killed, the prince was frightened and screamed, and he quickly begged for mercy. Father, please forgive me, father, please forgive me, it's all that bitch's fault, my son. Pa! Before the prince could finish his words, he was slapped away by Emperor Jingtai. The prince's face was distorted, and 7 or 8 teeth came out and flew in all directions. The prince hit the wall, then landed on the ground, and fainted. Jingtai the emperor looked at the unconscious prince, with murderous intentions rising and falling in his heart. Killing and not killing were intertwined in his mind. As an emperor, he was cuckolded, and his majesty was gone. He had the intention to cut the prince into pieces with 1,000 knives. But after all, the prince was his son, he had always had high hopes for him and taught him carefully. The love between father and son prevented him from killing his son. After all, tiger poison will not eat its children. In fact, subconsciously, Emperor Jingtai had already made a choice. With Emperor Jingtai's with his palm power, he could smash Li Binjiun's head to pieces with one palm, and he could also smash the prince's head to pieces with one palm. But the prince was only knocked unconscious by him. This was Emperor Jingtai's subconscious showing mercy. At this moment, Emperor Jingtai's thoughts were flying wildly. Unable to make up his mind. After glancing at the unconscious prince, Emperor Jingtai turned and left the palace. His face was cold, and the murderous intention in his heart had not been vented, and he needed to kill more lives to be satisfied. So, the eunuchs and maids of Shuixian Palace became the target of Emperor Jingtai's killing. Every time the prince comes to Shuixian Palace, the eunuchs and maids in the palace will be asked to go to bed early. No matter what happens outside or what the noise is, they are not allowed to go out. In the past, some people were curious, but in the end they all died. Corpses. Over time, all these eunuchs and maids became honest. Emperor Jingtai didn't know how many people knew about it, but as long as he washed away the blood in the entire Shuixian Palace, he could guarantee that fewer people would know about it. That night, Emperor Jingtai he personally took action and blood-bathed Shuixian Palace. All the eunuchs, maids, and guards of Shuixian Palace were killed, and no one survived. When Emperor Jingtai left Shuixian Palace, the dragon robe on his body was stained red with blood. Emperor Jingtai had been on the throne for decades. Countless people were killed, but they were all ordered to kill, and there were very few moments when they killed with their own hands, let alone killing so many people at once. The only thing that can be compared with tonight is the internal chaos in the palace on the night Emperor Jingtai ascended the throne. Outside the palace when Xia Yongxuan saw the emperor coming out, he didn't ask a word. He was a smart man, and he had already guessed the emperor's blood-stained robe. At this time, the more questions he asked, the sooner he would die. Martial arts, become invincible starting from the full-level magic system. Author, Drunk in March at Westlake. Chapter 427. Emperor Jingtai tried his best to block the news, but the news eventually leaked out and spread extremely quickly. Just the next day, the news about the prince had already spread throughout the streets and alleys of Jinling City, arousing heated discussions among countless people. Emperor Jingtai became a laughingstock for a while, and the dignity of the emperor was gone. And this is not the most serious thing, because at the same time, important court officials from all over the Zhou dynasty were assassinated one after another. The person who took action was undoubtedly the demon cult, and a master of the demon cult. The demon sect was coming with force, and the identity of the killers who led the team was quickly found out. It turned out to be the White Emperor and the Black Emperor who had been hiding in the shadows. Moreover, the identities of these two mysterious guardians were also revealed to the world. By Dijundeo, The hidden identity turned out to be the great elder of the Taoist sect. He has been undercover for decades and his identity has never been exposed. Black Emperor Feng Mo Slaughter is also a highly respected hero in the world, and is the leader of the 33 villages in Zishan. After the identity of the White Emperor and the Black Emperor was revealed to the world, it immediately caused an uproar in the world. No one would have thought that the great elder of the Taoist sect and the general leader of the 33 villages in Zishan, a benevolent and righteous hero like 840, would actually be the protector of the demon sect. Unfortunately, it was too late to find out at this moment. The demon cult had already come out in full force. The White Emperor and the Black Emperor had been undercover for many years and had already established their own power in the world. At this time, they merged with the demon cult, which immediately plunged the entire Great Zhou dynasty into chaos. The Black Armor Army, which had been trained by the demon cult for many years, was also dispatched. Their total number exceeded 500,000, and they were all well-equipped and well-trained elite soldiers and generals. Coupled with the spies and undercover agents placed by the demon cult in various places, the entire Great Zhou dynasty was on the verge of overturning in an instant. Troubled times appeared without warning. Of course, no matter how chaotic the Great Zhou dynasty was, it would not be able to bring chaos to Mobei. Mobei of the Great Zhou dynasty can be said to have become the center of the whirlpool, and everyone in the world is looking at Mobei at this moment. Xia Aishi personally took action, blood-bathed Mobei, and finally found the secret agent planted by the demon sect in Mobei. The Night Evil sect was discovered, and all the disciples of the Night Evil sect were slaughtered by Xia Aishi. And Xia Aishi also fell in love with Shangguan Fixiao, his old rival. The two had not seen each other for more than 50 years and almost 60 years. Although they were mortal enemies, they reunited after a long time, but they did not take action immediately. In the Black Plains of Mobei, two armies stood facing each other. On one side are the elites of the imperial court, and on the other side are the demon sect's Suanjia army. The two sides were at war with each other and the atmosphere was tense. In the sky above the army, there were two figures standing in the air. One is Xia Aishi, and the other is Shangguan Fixiao. Old guy, you're not dead yet, it's really beyond my expectation. Xia Aishi spoke first, his voice was cold and full of murderous intent. Shangguan Fixiao smiled sarcastically, my Shangguan royal family is favored by heaven and will be immortal forever. What can you, these rebellious officials and traitors, do to me? God favors you. Xia Aishi's face was full of ridicule. A group of defeated soldiers and desperate wild dogs can only hide in the gutter and dream of past glory. That's fine, if you don't come out, I can't do anything about it. Since you want to come out to seek death, I will naturally help you. As soon as he said these words, Xia Aishi's whole body murderous aura suddenly erupted, shaking the world. Ha ha ha. Shangguan Fixiao looked up to the sky and laughed, death is determined only by strength. Your words at this moment are no different from utter nonsense, and they only make me laugh. Do you think I will show up to fight you without any preparation? Someone come! Shangguan Fixiao shouted loudly. The voice was earth-shattering and spread throughout dozens of miles. Whoosh! Whoosh! The stream of light flashed, and two streams of light came from the distant sky. In an instant, they came to Shangguan Fixiao's side, one on the left and one on the left. Standing in the air on the right side, Liu Guang appeared, and it was Shangguan Wudao, the leader of the demon cult, and Wu Wudi, the leader of the Supreme Alliance. 3 against 1, today is the day you die. Shangguan Fixiao stared at Xia Aishi with cold eyes, as if he was looking at a dead person. Facing the three heavenly beings, Xia Aishi's face did not change, he just sneered and said nothing. At the same time, behind Xia Aishi, the same thing happened. There was a stream of light coming. And there were not two people, but three people. The three people were Xia Lushan, the ancestor of the Xia family, Xiao Aizai from the Taoist school, and Xiantong from the Buddhist school. The strength of the pair changed, and a pair of 3 instantly became 4. Verses 3. Shang Guanfixiao, do you still have a chance of winning now? Shang Guanfixiao looked at Xiao Aizai with a cold face and said, I had expected that Buddhism would intervene, but I didn't expect that you, Xiao Aizai, would also take a trip into this muddy water. The 2 Zen temples of Buddhism are the state religion of the Great Zhou dynasty. They are in the same spirit as the Great Zhou dynasty and are interdependent. They have no distinction between you and me. Therefore, Shang Guanfixiao was prepared for the Buddhist Xiantong attack. But he did not expect Xiao Aozhi will take action. You must know that Taoism values tranquility and inaction, and has never intervened in the disputes between the country, and the country. As long as the Taoism has gods and humans in charge, no matter who is in the world, they will win over the Taoism, and the Taoism will be invincible. Who would have thought that Xiao Aozhi Jing stood with the Buddhists and the Great Zhou court? Xiao Aozhi looked at Shang Guanfixiao and said, it's not that I have to take action. I also want to be quiet and do nothing. It's a pity that what your demon sect has done has already invaded our country. I've reached the bottom line. A trace of anger flashed across Xiao Aozhi's face. The root cause lies in the fact that Beiti Jundao was an undercover agent of the Taoist sect. The great elder of the Taoist sect was actually an undercover agent placed by the demon sect inside the Taoist section. Once this matter was exposed, the Taoist sect was immediately disgraced. Moreover, the demon sect's act of placing undercover agents in the Taoist sect has aroused strong dissatisfaction and vigilance among the Taoist section. The demonic sect is so unscrupulous. If the demonic sect's restoration is successful, how can the Taoist sect survive? So no matter what, Xiao Aozhi must take action this time. It's useless to talk more. Let's see the real story. Shang Guanfixiao shouted angrily, and immediately turned into a beam of blood and shot towards Xia Aoshi. Just in time, die. Xia Aoshi also attacked and faced Shang Guanfixiao 0. Shang Guanwudao looked at Wu Wudi and said, Leader Wu, there is no room for loss in this battle. I also ask Leader Wu to use all his strength. Wu Wudi smiled charmingly and said, don't worry, I, Wu Wudi, have said what I said. It's hard for a horse to catch up. I won't do anything. You will go back on your word. As he spoke, Wu Wudi looked at Xiaolushan opposite and laughed loudly. Xiaolushan, last time you were lucky enough to save a small life, but this time you are going to die. You are not afraid of death without a burial. Land. Xiaolushan looked gloomy and angry, but said nothing. It is important for a person to be self-aware, and he knows that he is not an invincible opponent. He was severely injured by Wu Wudi during his heyday, not to mention that he has not recovered from his serious injuries now. Now he only has the 3-level power in his heyday, and he may not even be able to catch a single move from Wu Wudi with all his strength. Stepping forward rashly is the same as seeking death. 2 masters, everything depends on you. Xiaolushan can't do it himself, so he can only rely on external aid. He looked at Xiantong and Xiao Aozhi with respectful expressions and did not dare to have a trace of arrogance. In terms of strength, he was only in the 2nd realm of heaven and human beings, while Xiantong and Xiao Aozhi were both the 3rd realm of heaven and man. At this realm, the royal status is useless. Xiantong and Xiao Aozhi nodded slightly, and they immediately flew forward to fight Wu Wudi and Shang Guanwudao. The 6 masters of the integration of heaven and man fought. The aftermath of the battle was extremely terrifying. The terrible true energy enveloped several miles around. The power of heaven and earth tilted, rolling up the wind and clouds in the sky, making the wind and clouds change color, just like the end of the world. And on the wasteland, the 2 armies also fought together completely, making the wasteland change. It became a battlefield of flesh and blood. Xiaolushan did not dare to teach Wu Wudi, so he rushed to the wilderness battlefield, waiting for an opportunity to kill the generals of the Suanjia army and weaken the strength of the army. Shangguan Wudiao discovered the situation and wanted to take action, but was Buddhist Qiantong blocked it. Suantong's strength was superior to that of Shangguan Wudiao. Shangguan Wudiao could only try to protect himself by 2.8 and was unable to break the game. Shangguan Fixiao and Xiaoyashi were also evenly matched and unable to take action. The only one who could break the game was Wu Wudi alone. Leader Wu, it's not too late for you to retreat now. Xiaoyashi began to admonish. The 6 heavenly beings and the other 4 were all fighting with all their strength. Only Wu Wudi and Xiaoyashi had the most peaceful battle. Because they were not mortal enemies, there was no need for a life and death fight. Wu Wudi he smiled evilly and said, Master, it's too early to say this now, be careful of getting slapped in the face. As soon as he finished speaking, Wu Wudi forced Xiaoyashi back with a palm, and immediately flew towards Xiaolushan. Xiaoyashi naturally chased after him, and slapped Wu Wudi on the back of the heart with a palm. The force of the palm was so powerful that it could split mountains and rocks. With the palm of his hand, both his spirit and form were destroyed. This palm directly exploded Wu Wudi's physical body. However, the exploded Wu Wudi directly turned into mist and dissipated, and his true body had already arrived behind Xiaolushan. Taoism Supreme, the unique skill of being in harmony with light and dust, coupled with the ability to change shape and form, makes it impossible for Xiaoyashi to catch Wu Wudi's entity. Martial arts, become invincible starting from the full-level magic system. Author, Drunk in March at West Lake. Chapter 428. Wu Wudi, do you really want to go against my royal family of the great Zhou dynasty? Seeing Wu Wudi coming to kill, Xiaolushan was so frightened that his liver and gallbladder split, and he roared angrily, heart-piercingly. His voice was panicked, mixed with endless panic and fear. Wu Wudi sneered and said, even if you are about to die, it's ridiculous to say such nonsense. Before he finished speaking, Wu Wudi slapped Xiaolushan with a palm. The powerful palm power merged with the power of heaven and earth and turned into a vast giant palm. It was the Suanwu divine palm that controlled the universe. Xiaolushan was not willing to die, so he naturally attacked with all his strength, and also used a secret technique to increase the power of the move. The overwhelming internal energy turned into a dragon's head and bit into the giant palm. However, everything was in vain. Wu Wudi's palm was so powerful, unparalleled, he directly smashed the dragon's head to pieces, and then slapped it on Xiaolushan's chest. With a bang, Xiaolushan's body shook, and then exploded directly, turning into blood mist that filled the sky and dissipated with the wind. Before Xiaolushan died, full of unwillingness and resentment. He could not have imagined that the strength of Wu Wudi's palm was several times stronger than the last time he taught him. His desperate killing move was of no use at all. Luo Tian. Seeing Xiaolushan being killed, Xiaoyashi went crazy with hatred, and his eyes instantly turned red. A terrible murderous aura rushed towards Wu Wudi, as if he wanted to eat him alive. However, Wu Wudi seemed to turn a deaf ear and just smiled evilly. The next moment, Xiaoyashi rushed in front of Wu Wudi, stabbing forward with the long sword in his hand, stabbing Wu Wudi 04's chest vitals. The Taoist sect is not only strong in Taoism, but also weak in swordsmanship. The true energy in Wu Wudi's hand gathered and turned into a handle. The giant sword also stabbed Xiaoyashi. Who does the king's will of the Suanwu, true skill and destiny swordsmanship? A mighty sword, full of the supreme majesty of the swordsmanship, crushed Xiaoyashi's sword intent. Under one sword, Xiaoyashi's respect was shattered in an instant. The crack disappeared. The power of the king's will was not reduced, and it bombarded Xiaoyashi's body. Xiaoyashi flew out upside down, vomited blood, and instantly turned into a bloody man. What? Seeing Xiaoyashi being seriously injured, Buddhist Qiantong and Xiaoyashi were shocked. Even Shangguan Fixiao and Shangguan Wuidao were startled. They didn't expect that Wu Wudi was so strong. If he didn't explode, already, it broke out and seriously injured Xiao Aizai with just one move. Xiao Aizai is a strong person in the third realm of heavenly beings, and his strength is not weak. Even Xiantong, Shangguan Fixiao, and Xia Aishi, who are in the same realm, are not sure that they can defeat him. Xiao Aizai, let alone seriously hurt them with one move. You hide your strength. Xia Aishi stared at Wu Wudi with tears in his eyes. His eyes seemed to want to see through Wu Wudi's body and see his soul. In the last battle in Jinling City, Wu Wudi's strength was definitely not that strong. Even Shangguan Fei Xiao Xiao and Shangguan Wuidao both stopped. No one was a fool and they all sensed something was wrong. Wu Wudi had such strength, but he still hid it, so he must have a conspiracy. Although the demon sect formed an alliance with them, it was tantamount to seeking the skin of a tiger. Now that things have come to this, I have nothing to hide. Wu Wudi walked through the air and looked at the 5 heavenly beings with a dull expression. But at this moment, a fierce roar came from the distance, "Leader! Ancestor!" Everyone followed the sound and saw a figure covered in blood running from a distance. It was a woman with a good figure and a beautiful face, but she was seriously injured at the moment. This person was the protector of the demon cult, the Emperor of Hades. 7 nights in the world of mortals. The leader, ancestor, and the treasure of the Holy Spirit have been taken away. Underworld Emperor shouted as he ran, and couldn't help spitting out another mouthful of blood. When they heard that the Holy Spirit treasure was taken away, Shangguan Fixiao and Shangguan Wudaijin both changed their faces. They were about to ask, but Wu Wudi raised his hand. With one finger, he smashed the head of Hades' emperor into minced meat and killed him on the spot. "It's you did it?" Shangguan Fixiao and Shangguan Wuidao glared at Wu Wudi. Wu Wudi said calmly, "I did it." When Wu Wudi came here for the battle, Wu Wudi had already ordered Xiao Tians to lead people to surprise Hades. Although Hades was a protector of the demon cult, she was the weakest protector among the 6 emperors, with only the strength of the mid-level Grand Master. And Xiao Tians, who is at the peak of his Grand Master's career, is more than enough to deal with her. Now, the treasure of the Holy Spirit that the demon cult has been plotting for 100 years has fallen into Xiao Wuji's hands. "Who are you?" The 5 heavenly beings stared at Wu Wudi, as if their gazes could penetrate the flesh. Wu Wudi smiled slightly, white mist appeared on his body, and he instantly turned into another person. Wearing a dragon robe and a golden crown on his head, he looked very noble. Just standing there, as if he were the master of the world. "Xiao! Cut! Sky!" Shangguan Wuidao shouted out the 3 words Xiao Zhantian one by one. He recognized the face that turned into ashes. He had killed Xiao Zhantian countless times in his dream. No wonder Wu Wudi appeared so unexpectedly and had such strength. It turned out to be Emperor Tiankai Yuan Wuo, Xiao Zhantian. Everyone understood. It turned out that the man behind everything was Xiao Zhantian. Xiao Zhantian plotted the territory of the Great Zhou dynasty, and also wanted to get rid of the mortal enemy of the demon sect at the same time, so he secretly added fuel to the flames and provoked the Great Zhou dynasty and the demon section, thus the fishermen will benefit. "Xiao Zhantian, you are too arrogant. You deserve to die." Shangguan Wuidao was furious, and Xia Aishi also had endless killing intent. And the one who struck the fastest was undoubtedly Xia Aishi. He slapped Xiao Zhantian with a palm, and the color of the sky and the earth suddenly changed, thunder exploded in the sky, and turned into a huge thunder palm, heading towards Xiao Zhantian fell head-on. Without even looking at the thunder palm above his head, Xiao Zhantian raised his hand and pierced the air with one finger. The sword light pierced through the thunder palm immediately, along with the black clouds high in the sky. This sword, it's like a big hole was poked in the sky. Your strength. The fourth realm of heavenly beings. Shang Guanfixiao looked at Xiao Zhantian in surprise and uttered a few words. To be able to defeat his killing move so easily, he must be a person in the fourth realm of heaven. Do it. You have vision, so it is your great honor to die by my sword. Xiao Zhantian smiled coldly, an endless sword light suddenly appeared around him. The sword light was densely packed, with thousands, tens of thousands, and hundreds of thousands of them. It blocked the sky and the sun, and Shang Guanfixiao and others' scalps were numb. Wang Jian returns to his clan. Xiao Zhantian raised his hand and pointed, and Wang Jian roared out, immediately drowning Shang Guanfixiao. His killing moves and defensive moves were all useless, and he was cut into pieces by Wang Jian and died in an instant. No traces were left. At the same time, Shang Guanwudao, Xia Aishi, Xiantong, and Xiao Aizai had already fled. Facing Xiao Zhantian in the fourth realm of heaven, they had no power to fight back. They had no choice but to escape. However, being in Xiao Wuji's sword domain, they had no way to retreat. Wang Jian changed its direction and submerged the four of them one by one. By the time the sword domain dissipated, the four of them had completely disappeared. At this point, all six heavenly beings on the battlefield have fallen. Thunder exploded in the sky, and heaven sensed the fall of heavenly beings, and the heavenly vision bloomed. This heavenly vision is the most terrifying one so far. Endless thunder exploded, and the sky was pitch black, covering the surrounding area. Tens of thousands of miles. 6 golden lights fell from the sky, shining on the place where the 6 people died, symbolizing the fall of the 6 heavenly beings. Dead, the ancestor is dead. The leader is also dead. When the 2 armies fighting saw the 6 heavenly beings fall, they all lost their will to fight. They laid down their weapons and surrendered, or knelt down and surrendered. Of course, there were also die-hard elements who knew they were hopeless and chose to draw their swords and kill themselves. One battle will determine the world. After this, in the first battle, Xiao Wuji completely eradicated 057 the hostile heavenly beings within the territory of the Great Zhou. The demonic elements who caused chaos in various parts of the Great Zhou were also easily eliminated by Xiao Wuji. The White Emperor Jundao and the Black Emperor sealed the demons and killed them. After his death, he was manipulated by Xiao Wuji using the soul-moving method and became a puppet, unable to serve Tiankai. Tiankai easily annexed the Zhou dynasty. Afterwards, Xiao Wuji went to Bian and Yekan alone, blood-bathed the palaces, and destroyed the 2 kingdoms. The royal family and die-hard elements of the country. Then the apocalypse swallowed up the 4 countries, and the world united. The Holy Spirit treasure was taken out by Xiao Wuji. As he guessed, it contained the peerless magical skills left by Emperor Biwen thousands of years ago, as well as endless treasures. Gold and silver treasures. Gold and silver treasures were used by Xiao Wuji to govern the country, and he practiced the magic skills himself. After 3 years, Xiao Wuji took another step forward in the realm of half-step void, reaching the threshold of shattered void. It only takes a thought to step into the realm of shattered void. But Xiao Wuji did not do that. Because of shattered void, Xiao Wuji was about to leave this world. The country he had conquered was not yet stable, and it was not suitable to leave at this time. At least, he has to wait until the prince grows up and can take charge of his own affairs before he can leave. And at this time, Xiao Wuji is not sure that he can survive the thunder tribulation. Whenever Xiao Wuji wants to break through, there will be a sense of crisis in his heart. This is a whim, a warning from heaven. So Xiao Wuji is still waiting and making preparations. Anyway, with his state, he can live for at least 300 years, and he has plenty of time. As time goes by, apocalypse becomes stronger and stronger. The name of Emperor Yuanwu Xiao Wuji has been recorded in history books forever. On the 9th day of September in the 43rd year of Yuanwu, Emperor Yuanwu Xiao Wuji finally shattered the void and ascended in the daytime, becoming the first successful ascension person in thousands of years.